Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's event, Pivoting Passions in the Pandemic, where we're so excited to explore with our panel of 5 successful female business owners how they have thrived and inspired others during the pandemic. So thank you for spending the first sunny and slightly warm lunchtime in a while with us here at the webinar. We'd love to know who you all are, so please pop in the chat column where you're tuning in from today, what you're most looking forward to from today, what you're most looking forward to about lockdown easing, and of course any questions as the event goes on. We'll ask some of the questions as we move through the event and some at the end as well. So anything that comes to mind, please pop it in the chat column. And before I introduce you to our fantastic panelists, I'll just introduce myself quickly. I might be a familiar face to some people that attend a lot of CMI webinars. I'm Katie Kelly. I'm the host of today's event and I'm a CMI London board member. I lead our Women's Hub, and outside of my CMI volunteer role, I'm also a change management consultant at a consulting firm called Oaklim, where I also lead on our Including Our People activities. So I'm super passionate about gender equality, and I pursue this obviously through my CMI role and other personal endeavours such as my Heroes Instagram page and podcast that celebrates inspiring females. And the link for those will pop up in the chat in a second if you'd like to take a look there. And I've also just become a Women's Aid community ambassador after some of the research I did through some events I planned as part of International Women's Day, and was really shocked by the extreme rise in domestic abuse during the pandemic, as well as some other stats that came up, which I'll talk to you about now. So before I ask the panelists to introduce themselves, I'll give you a bit of background as to what the potential impact of the pandemic is on working women and the reason my idea for this event came up in the first place, I guess. So as mentioned, prompted by International Women's Day celebrations this year, I did lots of reading around the disproportionate impacts of COVID-19 on women in the workplace particularly. And again, the findings really shocked me. I didn't expect them to be that extreme. And CMI Management Transformed research highlights that COVID-19 has obviously changed the way people work, and I'm sure we've all experienced that ourselves to some extent. We know that around half of the workforce are reported to be working from home or remotely. And as we move into the new normal, with hybrid ways of working emerging, I'm sure this will change once again, and we'll need to learn how to adopt to that change again. ONS data, the Office for National Statistics, also highlights that unemployment rates for the UK for the period between October and December 2020 was 5.1%, which is the highest rate in the last 5 years. And if we look at stats about women and working women in particular, a UN Women report also notes that in the UK and globally, job losses have impacted women more than men, with women's jobs 19% at more risk due to the pandemic than men's. And in addition to the direct economic impact of job loss and reduced incomes, the pandemic has also significantly increased unpaid care and domestic workload for women more than it has for men. And a number of reports also suggest that women are more likely than men to pick up household activities such as cleaning, childcare, cooking, and also 43% more likely to have their hours at work increase due to their expectation to always be on. And this is all from the UN Women report. And lots of this has clearly had an adverse impact on women's mental health, with a staggering 86% of working women who also have childcare responsibilities reporting mental health distress last year too. So because of all of the above that I've just highlighted, CMI's Management Transformed research, which is available on our website, predicts that the pandemic can take back gender equality by decades. And it will be a while before the full scope of this impact becomes clear, but I feel like it already feels quite monumental, and that's exactly what inspired this event. So I wanted to make a small step to celebrate and provide support to others from women who have had to pivot during the pandemic to endure and innovate their businesses, with some of our panelists also doing this alongside full-time corporate roles. So now I've done that intro, I'll just like to welcome our panelists into the show, the studio, and invite them to give a short introduction of themselves and their business. And as yesterday marked further easing of lockdown, as well as introducing yourselves, can you also mention one thing from a personal or professional standpoint about restrictions easing that you're looking forward to as well? And I'll go to my right. I'll go Luca first, please.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today. My name is Luca. To give you a little bit of background about me, I'm an ACA chartered accountant, first and foremost, and I maintain a full-time corporate career. A few years ago, I set up Luca Day Spa and Salon, my business, which is based in Shoreditch. I very much think of it as a beauty concept. We really provide, a vast array of services under one roof. So ranging from kind of hair, nails, beauty, makeup, brows, lashes, massage, facial, reflexology, waxing, probably some more I've forgotten about. But, kind of above all, I think of it as, really self-care is key. That's what we try to sort of push. It's not just about physical appearance. Alongside that, I've brought out a hair care range, which will be in the shop shortly. The thing that I'm most looking forward to, I think, is just normality. It's not really kind of one key event or activity. For me personally, the whole kind of hurrah about, closing the shop, opening the shop, closing the shop, opening the shop, it's draining. There's really a lot that goes on behind the scenes to get everything in place and get everything ready. And obviously I didn't have, my team there all the time because, they're at home. So that was difficult. Just things getting back into the rhythm of normality is what I'm looking forward to the most.
Thank you. And who shall I pick on next? Nikita, please.
Hi, I knew you were coming my way. Hi, I'm Nikita. I am the owner of My Pepper Pots, which is a chili sauce condiments range. Actually launched this time last year, so it's actually coming up to the 1 year anniversary, which is really exciting. Alongside that, I actually work in creative, so I'm a senior project manager where I run a creative studio. And I think what I'm most looking forward to, I think similar to Luca, is just getting back to normal and having that sense of freedom. And I think in terms of the business, it's being able to kind of do a couple more like pop-up events maybe, and being able to kind of meet a lot more people and customers, which is exciting. So yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Alice?
Hi everyone. So yeah, my name is Alice Living. I actually started my career in musical theatre. So I trained as a dancer, went into the musical Annie, toured the UK with the show, and then at the same time I had been using social media as a way of like documenting my kind of healthy lifestyle, I guess. Through that, I then grew a following and ended up publishing my first book in 2016. And I then went on to publish 2 further books and kind of pivoted careers and retrained as a personal trainer. So I've worked at a London gym called Third Space for the last 5 years, training clients. I've worked with lots of actresses and cool people, training people for film and television. But then also alongside that, doing all the stuff that comes with, I guess, using social media as a platform to build my business. So lots of brand work, lots of kind of fun sort of stuff working with the media, so magazines and stuff. I write a regular column for Women's Health magazine. And then finally this last year and how my business, I guess, has pivoted is during the pandemic, really investing in digital tech and creating a fitness app, which was kind of born from everything that I've been doing online thus far. So that launches on the 1st of June, which I'm really excited about. And kind of it's a culmination of the work that I've done over the last 6 or 7 years in the fitness industry. The thing that I'm most excited about is just being able to go into a restaurant and not get rained on. I think I'd like to sit inside and not get my food not get like blown down the road, or just be sitting in the pouring rain basically. So I'm looking forward to having a nice meal inside somewhere.
Yeah, I totally feel that one. The novelty wore off quite quickly, didn't it? Being in a rainy pub garden, spending lots of money just to not be in your living room, just to be outside getting rained on. Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to being warm and eating and drinking. Caroline, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Good to meet you all. My name is Caroline Gundu. I am a senior business consultant for an IT firm. I specialize in the UK energy power and utility markets. Alongside doing that role, I am the chair of the Women's Network in my organization. We have over 200 members, and we do a variety of events just to kind of keep the workforce engaged. Outside of that, I'm also chair of the Young Energy Professionals Forum, which is an industry forum for young energy professionals in the UK. It's led by Energy UK, who are basically the voice of the industry. We have over 1,000 members and 300 member companies as well that participate in that. Outside of my professional life, I have a foodie brand, and it's an African foodie brand. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I moved to the UK when I was 9, and I've always felt connected to my Southern African roots. So I've got a foodie brand called Cooking with Kaz. And it's basically where I showcase my Zimbabwean food, but with my own personal twist to it. I started Cooking with Kaz when I finished university back in 2014. It was almost kind of my way to escape the reality of looking for a graduate job while I was in the search. So I used to just find myself in the kitchen cooking up a storm. Started on Snapchat as a little cooking show, moved on to Instagram, and it became a platform. I think the lockdown really provided a unique opportunity for me to really kind of horn in some energy into that. I always wanted to sort of develop a website and write a cookbook. And during the last lockdowns we've had, I've managed to reach all those targets, which is something I'm quite proud of. And I'll share a bit more as we have this session. In terms of what I'm looking forward to after the lockdown, as we're kind of going into this new normal, I'm one of those people looking forward to getting into the office. I really do thrive in like an office environment, being with my colleagues, meeting my clients. It's something I enjoy. But on a more personal level, I want to have a launch for my book. A lot of my followers and friends are looking forward to just kind of partying and celebrating the achievement in that way. And also being in a restaurant and eating food in a nice, warm environment. Thanks.
Thank you. And last but not least, China.
Hello. Thank you, Katie. So my name is China. I am an artist and founder of Artisan. Artisan is basically a creative company that aims to bring art back to people. So I worked in galleries for about 7 years before this, and it felt like everything was very exclusive, and people felt like they had to have gone to art school to understand or appreciate or even draw themselves. And that really upset me because I love art and I love drawing, and it doesn't matter what level you are, you can still enjoy those things. So Artisan kind of grew from that exclusion of people and wanting to get them involved, get them hands-on, get them interested in art, whether that's just looking or by practically doing. So what we do is we offer workshops for businesses. So it's a great way to kind of use it as a team building experience. But the main service is providing paintings for brands, advertising, film and TV. So it's artwork that is still technically very high skilled, but not so precious. I think, you know, the level everyone can see it and go, wow, that's a painting. I like that, and that's fine. So it's creating work that is making everything engaging and making people feel like they're a part of it. And I suppose what I'm looking forward to the most out of lockdown, to be honest, is a break. I think because, you know, we all run our own businesses, being at home all the time means that you're always working. So I really can't wait to leave the house and switch off for a few days. I'll probably be thinking about it all the time, but a little break is what I'm really looking forward to out of the house.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know whether that's possible when you carry your phone around with you, and that's kind of what you run your business off anyway, isn't it? But we can hope for some switch off time. Thank you very much, everyone. They were brilliant introductions. We'll move on to some of the questions. Some of these we've had submitted by the audience beforehand, and we hope to get some more in the comments in the comment section as we go through as well. So we'll kick off. Obviously, this event is around how we pivoted in the pandemic. And if we think back to March 2020, that time ago, when lockdown was announced, what was going through your mind? What concerns did you have for your business or well-being when we found out we were going into lockdown? Does anybody want to take that one first?
I can.
Thank you.
I felt like my world was over. which I'm sure many people have experienced at some point. Artisan was really new. It was about 6 months old, and my struggle was getting in front of people, letting them know that this exists, you know, these services exist, the paintings exist. And with everything locked down, everything that I offered was an experience. Seeing a painting was an experience, drawing was an experience. So I really thought it was over. Yeah, it took a few weeks to kind of get over that. I gave myself a bit of time to grieve, and then was like, right, back on it. Let's just fix it, figure it out.
Yeah, I think that probably resonates with everyone. It was kind of a state of shock, wasn't it, for the first few weeks, and then we kind of get into the rhythm of things and know what normal was like. Alice, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what a lot of people have pivoted to over the last sort of 14 months has been, I guess, exploring the online space and how they can utilize that as part of their business. So a lot of people, myself included, the whole of the fitness industry, I guess, had to really look at ways in which they could use social media and online platforms in order to engage with their audience in a meaningful way. So for me, that meant, using Instagram, for example, which has the ability now to be able to stream live to thousands of people all over the world, which is amazing. And had it not been for those things, I don't know where I would have found myself. But thankfully, with those tools, I was able to create some structure in my days, which I think was so important. What I found, particularly in that early point of lockdown, was the never-ending day of just having all of these hours and what to fill them with and how to start my day and how to create structure within that day so that I felt like I was getting something from each day. I think, my way of working prior to COVID was very much like pack as much in as possible, do as much as I can, try and get as much from the day as possible. And I think, what I've learned is that actually what COVID taught me was, try and do maybe a few things in each day, not pack yourself out so that you're not doing anything to the best of your ability, but do things really well, and maybe do a few less things, but do those things really well. So I started teaching classes on Instagram, doing sort of live workouts, and then kind of dedicated some time to some educational content as well around health and well-being that would help people over the last year, just to feel a bit more kind of grounded and informed about the situation that we were finding ourselves in. And really that meant that I had something to get out of bed for, which I think was just so important at some points. And I had a purpose, I was giving something to people. And I felt that really meant that my mental health definitely was supported in a way that it might not have been had I not had that kind of that thing to fill the void. I would say that, what we've seen and what's so great over the last year is really the kind of the speeding up of the online tech and how we can use it. If we look at Zoom and Microsoft Teams and Instagram Live and all these platforms that have suddenly had loads of improvements and are really accessible now, it kind of opens up this whole new way of working. And I'm absolutely the same as Caroline. I love being in front of people and I love engaging with people. So some of this stuff just doesn't vibe for me. I can't wait to be in meetings with people or go for a coffee with someone and really sit and have a proper conversation with them. But in other ways, it is great. If you're something, a lot of my friends have had kids over lockdown and they've been able to go back to work in a much more accessible way. Through still being at home, but using Teams or Zoom to feel included in that environment. So I've really enjoyed seeing that, and I've definitely lent on the fact that digital tech is now going to be, way more a part of lots of industries than it was before, the fitness industry included, and that's why I decided to invest in creating my app.
Yeah. I totally agree. I know loads of people that have said how excited they are about getting back in front of people in a working environment or a personal environment. And I thought I would definitely be one of those people that wanted to be in the office every day. And I've been in a few times, but it is going to take a while to adjust because I have got so used to engaging with people over a screen and got quite comfortable with it. Because in some ways, and especially obviously we're celebrating working women here, I find it easier to be heard sometimes on a Zoom call. You're all sitting there facing each other and you don't have the extra distractions or anything else that goes on that maybe stops you speaking up all the time. So yeah, that's something that I'm working through at the moment. Thank you, Alice. You touched on something there. We talked about digital tech and we talked about social media, and this is one of the questions that has come in from the audience. But how, if I can find it, how do you manage your marketing, and kind of how do you use social media to your advantage to build your business? And I'm going to go to Luca for that one, please.
Sure. So to be honest, this is something that I'm still working on at the moment, having a fairly sort of new business. And I'd say it definitely has been one of my biggest hurdles. I use Instagram. I find that's really effective. There are so many sort of marketing things that I've, tried when I first opened. I had a photo shoot with a really great photographer. We put parrots in the salon. I've got pictures with parrots on my head and all sorts, just to really try and, look at me. Someone just like acknowledge me. I'm here. Look at my business, because it is so hard just to stand out and get noticed. There's loads of initiatives and events and, things that we did with people, products that we collaborate with. We use Zoya nail polish. They're a vegan brand that work with our ethos. We had a product demo evening in the salon. So many things, but to be really honest, the only thing that I have found to be effective in terms of marketing is people having a fantastic experience with us and telling a friend. That is the way that we have really seen growth, just completely organically, word of mouth, and people wanting to come back because they like it. That aside, I still, do target building the Instagram. And something that I have found, through kind of speaking to other influencers and, like asking for help and advice, is definitely that, a personal page can be easier to grow because people like people. They like to see people and engagement necessarily rather than just a business. So my kind of take from that is to try and put your face behind it as much as possible, which I'm trying to do. And I think being a new business, particularly where that might have failed in the first 6 months, it's actually quite daunting to really put your face on that and get behind it. But as the business is growing, I'm trying to do that more and more. But yeah, it's definitely something I'd be really keen to hear from the rest of you, how you're doing that and what advice you'd give.
Nikita, do you want to touch on that, around how you've marketed My Pepper Pots?
I guess my answer would be similar to Luca's, in the sense of having to kind of put your face out there. I did notice the more and more I kind of put myself out there, the more engagement I got. And the other thing I found is actually engaging with your followers. Engaging with other foodies. I've met some amazing people over the past year, which again would be amazing to actually meet them in person now that things are opening up. But just having those genuine conversations with people and connecting with people have in turn kind of led to a lot of brand awareness, I've found, and led to, I'm not having those conversations with them just to get sales, but it's been a nice byproduct of it, and just taking a lot of learnings from them as well, and just listening to their suggestions and feedbacks and kind of swapping tips. That's been amazing. But I will say that it is something that I'm still kind of learning and on the journey of as well. But definitely engaging with your followers is up there for sure, because it just allows people to get to know you a little bit more and buy into you and not just your product or service that you're selling.
Thank you. I'm going to ask this question to Caroline. You've obviously mentioned that you've got a full-time corporate job that you do alongside your business. How do you juggle that? How do you manage your time?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not one of those people that sit there with a spreadsheet and schedule. I'll be completely honest. I'm actually really, to somebody watching, I'm quite disorganized. I do things as and when I need to do them, but I've found that that's my rhythm. I used to actually think for a very long time I was indisciplined because I couldn't keep to a routine, but I realized actually not having a routine and having a reason as to why I do certain things is what propels me to want to do it. So I remember when I was sort of writing my cookbook, I could spend, I don't know, a good 5 hours before work or even after work working towards the book because I wanted to and because I was passionate about it. Whereas if I had sort of tried the approach where I give myself an hour each day to do some work towards the cookbook, that never worked for me. It worked when I realized, actually, I want to be doing this. I'm passionate about it. And it's what fuels me. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that for anyone that's trying to grow a massive business as a strategy. I'm one of those people where I'm driven by that. I think what's really important is self-awareness. When you are aware of yourself and you know what you like and you know what makes you tick, that's what helps you to kind of create that that ability to cope, I guess. That's probably the simplest way I can put it.
Thank you. And you talked about passion, and that's something that I know that lots of us have spoken about when we've had conversations leading up to this event. And one of the questions we had submitted in advance was how you keep that passion going. Obviously, Caroline, you just mentioned sometimes you might do it 5 hours before you start work and then be up until the early hours, which I can imagine can be quite draining and like hard to remember why you're doing it. But how do we all keep our passion moving forward? How do we keep that drive? Does anybody want to take that one?
I don't mind answering that first, actually, because it's a topic I'm passionate about. For me, I think passion is fleeting, right? Just like motivation. And you need to have a value system or things that are much bigger than how you're feeling in the moment. It's important to understand the value of what you're doing to yourself and sort of not giving yourself room to negotiate your way out of it. Even if you've procrastinated the whole day and you've got until like maybe an hour till you have to do what you need to do, but there's a value associated to what you're doing. I think passion is really good to get yourself started, but after that, you need to have values that are much deeper than how you're feeling. And this is almost kind of like how you govern yourself to do things. That's how I feel about it.
I really resonate with Caroline. Someone asked me, a week ago, "Oh, what's your 10-year plan?" I don't want a 10-year plan. Like I don't want to feel like I'm, rigidly structured into how the business is going to grow and what we're going to do next. In the lockdown, the idea of starting up a product range was really exciting, and it's something to like embrace and work on in that moment. I wouldn't have wanted to necessarily feel the pressure on top of everything else of like, now you must do this and must do this. I think the business grows with me, so just taking it in your stride and doing what feels right at the right time.
Good. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything to that? I know passion is something we're all passionate about.
Yeah, I think kind of just piggybacking off what Luca was saying, and I think when I went into my pepper pots, I think the thing for me was just to have fun with it. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I was going to be this year. So even me being on this panel right now was like, whoa, I did not expect this. But I think, you just have to have fun with it. I mean, there are going to be some days that you just can't be bothered. And I think that's okay, as long as again, that like Caroline said, like you've got your values, like your values are ingrained and you have that foundation set. You'll overcome that and just continue to push through, and kind of think a lot of things will come to light as you continue and grow through the journey. But it's just about enjoying the process, and you'll find that passion will just remain.
Yeah, very good answer. Thank you. And then if we think about, obviously we've talked about how you keep your passion going. Does anyone want to take the question around what was the inciting moment that kind of made you want to pursue your passion, whether that's because you had a corporate job or you added things to your portfolio, like you did, Alice, kind of with your books, as well as alongside being a fitness instructor? What made you want to expand or switch?
Sorry. So I think I don't know. I think there's something about again, going off what both Luca and Nikita were saying. Like I am exactly the same. I've always just gone with 100% passion and kind of pivoted as and when things have come my way or opportunities have arisen, or I've got a specific interest in something. So writing the books was an opportunity that came up that I definitely took. But then things like creating my podcast, I had a real passion about talking to people and wanted to make sure that was an avenue that I explored. It could have absolutely failed and that would have been fine. It's one of those things that unless you try it, you'll never know. But in trying it, I found, oh my God, this is something that I love and definitely something that I want to continue to invest time into. And so I think that, it's, for me, it's about, I guess, two things. The first is definitely making sure that, there are simple things in place, like your well-being is at the forefront of everything you're doing. Like, I have seen so many, particularly my clients, for example, who have had side hustles, which, when we describe side hustles, like, it sounds really cool, but at times it can be incredibly stressful, and the hours that you are going to have to put into both of those, hats that you're wearing can be a lot. And the last thing I would want to see is for anyone to sort of burn themselves out when they're exploring a passion of theirs. So you've got to be mindful that whilst you might have all the passion in the world, unless you're investing back into yourself in terms of your well-being and having a bit of balance between the two, like, you're not going to be able to be good to anyone. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is also just knowing when to ask for help. I think that's one of my biggest learnings in my whole career. As I've grown and as things have started to come in, like a podcast and books and all these things, which are really exciting. But, at the end of the day, you've got to sit back and think there's a point where you can't do it all yourself. And even if it's a tiny delegation of, I'm going to get someone to manage, my emails a little bit, or make sure that, some things are dealt with in terms of my diary, those sort of things, and being able to reach out and ask for help make me a better person for my business, for my clients, my work. And often I think what happens is that when it is a passion project, you can be very guarded over how things are done and how you want things to be, and you have a very specific way of maybe doing things, and really, like, being more flexible in my means and being a bit more kind of laid back about, okay, well, I'm going to bring someone on to do this, they might do it slightly differently, and that's okay, has meant that, like, not only do I learn from that person and maybe things are better as a result, but my work has been an iterative process. And I really have felt that, particularly over the last couple of years, it's been a case of, asking for help when I need it. Some of that stuff works, some of it doesn't. So you move on, and you sort of, you learn as you go. I really do feel that, what a lot of these women have said is, having this, like, strict structure of what needs to happen over the next 5 years. And when I think back to, what I thought a typical business plan was, it had to be really rigid. You had to have an exact idea of, like, cash flow and all the things we were going to do, and, your KPIs and all that sort of stuff. I just don't work that way. And I think working in much more of a creative and kind of flexible industry has meant that, I can be a bit more explorative of trying things out. That might not work, this works, and almost, like, just feeling my way through. And so I think that, that's two of my biggest learnings. That didn't really answer your question, did it? Or did it? I feel like
it did. No, it did. And it moves us nicely onto another question when we start thinking about starting a small business. So we've had a question from Sarah, who says, I'm thinking of starting my own small business on Etsy. Can you give me some tips and advice on starting up? And I'm going to go to China for that one, if you don't mind.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, from my experience, and Etsy, I know, is a creative platform for a lot of crafters. I took very small baby steps. I'm a bit of a chicken, but that's not the same for everybody. Some people can just go for it and be like, right, let's just make this work. But I'm like, okay, what's the safest way to do this? Will I embarrass myself? Okay, I'll embarrass myself. Okay, so let's not do that one. But yeah, starting your own small business, you kind of, my friend always says fail first. And I think this helped me to get out of that, like, fear factor. When I was like, oh, I've got this idea. I want to do drawing workshops to, for teams instead of, like, quizzes. Why don't we do drawing workshops? And he was like, well, book 5. And I was like, what? Whoa, I don't have a website. I don't have anybody to ask. I was like, how am I going to book 5 sessions? And he was like, just ask people. And then suddenly 3 people were like, oh yeah, that sounds great, we'll do one. And I was like, why would you do that? I've not even got a business card. Like, okay, but those people believe in you, and they're like, that sounds great. And if your idea is great and whatever you provide or you create is great, people will see that. And I think for me, it was like a lot of, like, feedback from everybody. So, like, I have this idea, what do you think? And I'm sure my friends are sick to death of me being like, what do you think of this logo? What do you think of this sentence? Like, every tiny detail, I'm getting feedback from every possible audience. So yeah, I think that's how I started my business, was just giving it out to people, asking what they thought, and to be honest, like, they are the potential clients or customers, so their feedback is so important. And yeah, just go with that and trust your friends and your peers and everyone who supports and love you, because they want the best for you as well. So yeah, peer feedback, I would suggest.
Good, thank you. Nikita, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I think I'm of a similar mindset to China. I think having a great support system is key. I'm similar. I've bothered my friends and family to death, sending them new designs, sending them literally a caption being like, can you review this? Does this read okay? Does this look okay? But I'm so grateful and appreciative of being able to have that system to lean on. But I will also say, I think it needs to be normalized that you don't need to have everything planned out. You can just go for it, because you will learn along the way. And so with pepper pots, I had that fear factor where I was like, oh my God, people are just going to think this is really silly. It's just little hot sauces. How do I market this? But just one day I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go for it and just learn and take from there. I think there's always going to be room for continuous improvement, and it is so key to listen to people, take on that feedback, both the good and the bad, because as much as some feedback might not sound nice, or you might not necessarily agree with it, it can help to shape your business. So that's one thing I say, it is literally listen to people when they talk. But yeah, and again, just it comes back to, again, just enjoy the process as well, because it is fun, and especially if it's something that you do believe in and you're passionate about, people will feel that and see that, and in turn will believe in you. So yeah.
Thank you. Caroline, did you?
Yeah, so I share slightly different views on some of what you guys have said, especially around the fail first ideology. I just don't buy into that. I feel like it brings in such a negative thought. Why do you feel like you have to start by failing? I understand things don't always go to plan, but why does that have to be the thing that you lead with? So for me, I'm more of this is actually going to be the best thing ever. I speak what I want to see out of my product. I remember when I was writing my book, I'd never written a book before, I'd never published a book before. I'd ask people questions along the way, but actually I had to believe in myself and what I was doing first, because you'll find people who are I remember when I was writing the book, I'll give you a specific example. I would work really long days and really long nights, and people got worried about my well-being. Are you going to be okay? I knew this is a very short project for a very short time, so I can invest this sort of mental and emotional energy towards it. And for a long time, a lot of people trying to convince me not to push back my deadline. It was all in good, but it was all in good faith. It was all to kind of look out for you. But you almost have to ask yourself why you're doing it in the first place. What other people think and their concerns about you, they're great, but actually it's about you first, because you're the one that's having to drive this ship, and you're the one that knows what the destination of where you're trying to go to is. You were the one that came up with the idea. It was in your own private thoughts when this idea formed in your mind, and now you're bringing it out to the world. So actually the validation needs to start with you, and it needs to start from a very positive and self-empowered place. And it's not to sort of go in there, daisy-eyed and believing that you're never going to fail. There are things that come along the way, there are challenges. I have this motto that expect a challenge every day, expect some form of inconvenience, some form of trouble every single day, because it's the nature of the world we live in. Yeah. But once you've accepted that, you can then begin to actually see the beauty and believe in the light and the beauty of actually starting something new and seeing it through. Those are my views on that.
I love that. And what I thank you very much. What I love about each of you that answered that question is that you didn't start off by saying, in order to start a business, you need to read this book and understand this policy and this contract. It's all about people and how they've helped you. So that leads me on to my next question that we got submitted beforehand. And I'm going to go to Luca for this one, if you don't mind. Have you found a mentor during lockdown, or did you have a business mentor beforehand? How did you find them, and how do you use them? That's probably not the right word, but how do you connect with them, engage with them to help you?
I'm going to answer this question actually from two different aspects. So firstly, from the business side of things, I didn't have a business mentor per se, but I think you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help. If you just spam their inboxes and get in touch. find people that you look up to and ask them the questions. Really random one. I think, like I said, when I was starting, I was sort of struggling with advertising, and you need that footfall, you need your customers quickly, particularly if you have a physical premises and fixed overheads. And I got in touch with one of the owners of a string of nightclubs in London, one of which being Tonteria. I just always felt like they really stood out and they did their marketing really effectively. So I just dropped him a message and said, like, I've always sort of looked up to you from afar. Like, how are you doing this? What advice would you give? And he did actually get back in touch. And actually, strangely to what we just said about books, he did say, these are some great books. These really, inspire and motivate me. One of which being The Purple Cow on like advertising. And I read it, of course, because I was just like, oh, someone's,
I know you're
and, read it like it was gospel. So from that aspect, just, ask people, ask for help, say I'm doing this. I've never done it before. Don't really know what I'm doing at times. Please advise me. Like, what do you think? Those types of things. And then separately on the flip side of that, from my corporate role, so I'm actually a member of the Gender Equality Committee that we have like within our company. And we had an International Women's Day event, and I got in touch with a really like fantastic speaker. Her name is Sophie Chanduaker. She's a really senior figure with the Morgan Stanley in New York. I asked her to speak for our event. She often, campaigns for gender equality and things like that. And through that sort of contact and just dropping a line and being like, you've been recommended to me, you do fantastic things. Do you think you could give us a little bit of your time? She ended up sort of unofficially offering to mentor our group. Maybe on a monthly basis, we'll get in touch. So I think you probably always assume that, these fantastic people are so busy, they're never going to have any time for you. Yes, they are really busy, but also like what a compliment for someone to come forward and say, like, I really look up to you, like, let me know your thoughts. People do tend to reply, and that would be my tip on starting up. And, mentoring.
Yeah, I think the power of just reaching out rather than kind of holding back and thinking no one's going to respond. Obviously, I know everybody on this panel through various means, and the only person that I didn't know beforehand was Alice, who I reached out to, kind of found her details on Instagram. And some of you I'd worked with years ago and just reached out, and it's amazing how people respond and want to help out, especially when it's things like this, where it's about inspiring other people as well. So I think that just the setup of this event is a true example of the power of reaching out and relationships as well. Thank you. So I've got a question, particularly is for Alice. So this is from Stacey. How do you deal with the pressure to always be on? I imagine specifically in fitness and hobbies, you all had lots of pressure to support everyone else alongside maintaining your business. And I know, Alice, you've been a massive support for me during lockdown for your fitness classes. So how do you manage the fact that you're, I guess, mentoring from afar lots of other people?
Yeah, I think it's a funny one, because that is one of the parts of my job that I probably find more difficult. Is it's a lot of giving of yourself, both online, and also when I see my clients in person, you're sort of spending a lot of time filling up other people's cups and giving a lot to other people. And sometimes I can get to the end of the day and just be like, oh my God, don't talk to me. I can't speak to anyone. I just need to like have a moment just to breathe. But I think that, first and foremost, I love my job and I really enjoy what I do. And I get a lot from helping other people. And I think it's in my nature to do that. So I don't feel it like incredibly burdening to have to do that as part of what I do. But then I would say that like I am a natural sort of like introvert as well in many ways. And so whilst my job is very extroverted and I grew up in theatre and being very like, on, I also really have to be mindful of the fact that like to balance that out, pulling yourself back and taking time to yourself is just as important. So there are times when like, at the end of the day, I will just sit and read, or kind of, I guess, just do something for myself, have a bath, like do stuff that kind of, I guess, just fills back up my cup so that I have that energy in order to give to other people. And it's always just trying to find that equilibrium of like in and out. And it is difficult. And I think it's a learning process. And there are times when I definitely get to the end of the week and feel exhausted because I've given a lot. But I think that, in terms of like how to keep your hobbies as well, I would just say that that's about being really boundaried with how you work. I think one of the things that's been difficult over the last year is that it's kind of blurred the boundaries between work and home. And That's difficult for a lot of people, myself included, so that, you know, your laptop can open up on a weekend and suddenly you're doing emails and suddenly it's like, oh, it's Sunday and I've spent the whole day, you know, doing work. So I guess for me, it is being really boundaried about on a Friday night, you know, shutting my laptop down and saying, okay, that's my week done, even if I am at home. And then how can I invest my time into things that are fun, that are my hobbies, that are the things that I enjoy in my time off, so that I do feel like I have that good work-life balance. It's not always perfect. And there are definitely times when, just as Caroline said, you know, you do have to put in slightly longer hours. You know, I'm launching an app at the moment, and it's meant that, like, I've been doing a lot of working weekends and stuff. But again, it's a short-term thing. And you kind of know that there's a goal in sight and there's an end point. And so it doesn't feel as though it's like crazy kind of never-ending work. And I think that is helpful. But yeah, trying to be really boundaried about you know, work and play, and then also just making sure that you do take time for yourself at some point so that you can be a better person for everyone else around you.
Yeah, thank you. And that touches on something really interesting around boundaries, because I've read quite a lot about this, especially as we ease out of lockdown and people keeping their own boundaries, kind of personal and professional. Has anybody else got any kind of advice, tips for maintaining boundaries in your businesses? And that could be because you have full-time corporate jobs as well or not, but how do you keep your own time your own, I guess?
Sometimes you don't. You go, Caroline.
Oh, thank you. Exactly as Alice said, it's really about carving out time for yourself. It's really, really important that you rest. Rest is one thing that is underrated by a lot of people that want to be high flyers. You need to take some time out to just unwind. Every year, I built this in from about 3 years ago. Every year I take out a week for my annual leave and I drop off the grid. No social media, no human interaction if I can help it. I literally just sort of close myself off, and I use that time to just reflect and to think and just really identify what it is that's important to me. I'm really strong on values, because I think values don't age. If you can have a specific goal that you achieve and then it's time bound and you get to that point where you feel like I've got nothing to do, I've got nothing to give, and then you almost start the cycle over and over again. Whereas if you've got a value system that underpins your thinking, you're always going to be building on it. So for me, I believe in taking some time out to rest and reflect, staying away from the social media, staying away from people to a degree, actually, to take time for myself and then give back out after.
I love that, a sacred week where you're not doing anything. And I know that you've still done that during lockdown as well, which I really respect. I struggled to take any holiday, and now, yeah, I've got to take, well, I had to take all of it at the end of last year and still sit at home, just in a longer chunk. And I really like that. China, have you got anything to add to that one?
Yeah, so I think it is really hard to create boundaries for yourself. Like, I think especially if you run your own business full time and if you have 2 jobs, so your side business and then your day job. For me, I had to get out of that like conditioning of if you know, work all the time because you depend on this. And even now, you know, I might work in the evenings. I might have to do a couple of hours on a Saturday or a Sunday to teach private clients. And I've become okay with that because I'll treat myself, you know, on a Monday, maybe I'll do something for me and I won't start my work for Artisan until 10 or 11, or I'll take a long lunch break and I'll go and see a friend. And it's like, just because you're not working Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, doesn't mean you're not working hard. And I thought if I took a day off, I was cheating. Like, no, I can't switch off. I can't take a day off. So instead of that, I'm like, just spread your time out. Like, you're probably still working overtime and that has to happen for a while. But so long as you're rewarding yourself and doing things that maybe someone working in the office might not be able to do, then it's like, okay, China, you can relax. This is what, you know, you're working hard for. It gives you that flexibility, and that is something that is like time for me. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I can give myself that opportunity to do other things whenever I choose.
Yeah, the flexibility. Yes, yeah, you've got the pizza. And then talking about flexibility or not flexibility, for those of you that have got corporate jobs as well as running your own businesses, how do your employers feel about you running a side business or a business? I'm not sure I like that word, side business, because it's just a business, whilst being fully committed to your job still.
I'll go first on that one. So for me, it was actually very important to keep my two identities, very separate. I want to be judged on merit, the work that I do. I don't want it to be in the back of someone's mind, like, oh, she has something else, so maybe she's not as committed. So that's what I did. When I'm at work, I'm there to perform, I'm there to deliver. I keep as much of my personal life separate. And even sort of with the salon, I try not to cross over too much. Like, I want my team to know that I'm there for them and I'm, dependable. And yeah, so that would be my answer. It's different to the question that was asked, but I do keep them separate, and that has worked quite well for me so far. Because one doesn't suffer depending on the other. If anything, they're enhancive. Having my own business, I think, has strengthened my performance in my corporate career, in the confidence that it's given me, and having the skill set that I took from my corporate career into running a business. I only benefited from that. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Good, thank you. Nikita, have you got anything to add to that one?
I think my answer might be slightly different, but I think it started off the same in the sense that I tried to keep the two separate, because I guess out of fear of how it might be perceived, or like maybe they might see that, maybe they might think I'm not performing well in one or got my focus on the other. But in actual fact, my my team and most of the company actually are so supportive. A lot of them do buy my products as well. And I think it helps because I'm passionate about both of them. So I know you asked previously about juggling a business and a corporate job, but I don't see it as a juggling act. I see it more as balancing the two. But where my passion lies with both of them, they both come very naturally. And I guess because I work within creative, that as well has helped in kind of building the brand as well. And I think when it was actually one of my colleagues that let everyone know. But I'm also super grateful that they did, because I think it untapped another layer of confidence, allowing myself to put myself out there a little bit more, and also allow myself, like Caroline was saying, be almost being your own cheerleader and kind of celebrating yourself and allowing yourself to be celebrated by others. So it's quite nice that they've embraced that and supported that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna sort of add to that as well. I was quite similar to you, Luca. When I first whenever I went into work, no one knew about my Cooking with Kaz identity. And actually on Cooking with Kaz, a lot of my followers actually still think that I do this full time. People ask me, are you a chef? And it's always quite challenging to try and merge the two worlds together. But I found that lockdown it blurred those lines a little bit, because I guess at work you see each other, you talk about work and work related things, but with the lockdown people are asking, so how do you keep yourself company? And as a result you find yourself sharing a lot more of your life than you would have previously done. And I found that's what happened with me with Cooking with Kaz, to the point that I started sharing about my book and my website and all that good stuff, which is something I would have never done before. And in terms of how it's benefited me moving forward, it's definitely given me more confidence. It's definitely enabled me to bring my whole self to work, because I think it's really important. You spend 80% of your time at work, and you have a whole hidden identity that people don't know about you. And it's only for so long you can kind of keep that going, especially given the current environment that we're working in. So I've actually found it quite empowering to share that part of myself with my colleagues. And I've also learned stuff about them as well. So it's just made the whole experience just more nice.
Thank you. Just had a really interesting question come in from Stacey. I don't know who to pose this to, but if anybody wants to jump in, how can we, as in the public, support your businesses from the sidelines other than purchasing products or attending classes?
For me, it would come down to social media and or reviews. So how can you support? I suppose you probably would have to visit or try it out once, but if you do, really share that experience. If you like it, tell your friends. tag yourself on social media that you visited, that is hugely enhancing for a business that's trying to get out there and trying to get known.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same as well. It's just about, I mean, especially right now, like in the world we live in, everything's pretty much driven by social media. So it's about the reposts, it's about the tags, sharing reels, or, engaging with content. Like that's probably like one of the biggest way that people can support. And which is like brings me back to the fact that I've met a lot of amazing people, and some of them haven't necessarily bought any of my sources, but I can see that they believe in what I'm doing and believe in the business. So they kind of like fly the flag for me and repost and tag me and like share with their friends. And that's been an amazing support as well.
Alice, have you got anything to add to that? Obviously, you've exploded kind of on Instagram over the last few years. How has social media supported people engaging with your business? How have you made that work for you?
Yeah, I think actually, like, one of the things that I really still believe in, though, is the power of the word of mouth. And I still think that, like, regardless of social media, like, how many influencers do we all follow that probably post about stuff all the time? And I sort of watch it and don't really take it in. But if my friend says to me, oh my God, I've gone to this amazing person who does this, this, or this, the chance of me being actually engaged in that and going and visiting that place is so much higher. And I think that, like, if I like something and I want to talk about it, yes, I'll post about it on social media, but I'll probably also have conversations about it with my friends and telling people, because I think, I like to support small businesses. I like to support people that I think are doing things really well. And I think, like, I would say that absolutely social media is important. I like the fact that, like Nikita said, developing a community of people is probably more important than just getting likes and followers. People that truly engage in your brand are way more valuable to a brand than just having loads of followers. If you have people that really love your product and they're, talking about you online and they're reposting and they're commenting on your photos and whatever, that is so valuable to a brand, because that level of engagement shows like a true commitment to who you are and what you do. And so I'd look at investing in like your core loyal followers who already engage with you, because in turn, those people will then go and tell other people. Don't always look for having to grow and get more followers and how can I get more of these people engaged, because often what you'll get is people that are maybe half engaged and end up unfollowing because they're not really that interested. If you have people there already, like really work with like those people. So there are so many features now that you can use, like the question function on Instagram, or polls, or quizzes, things that like for people who watch your stories, or for people who love what you do. Start using those. Get them to like engage in your brand. Maybe ask them. That's how half of my market research I've done for my app has basically just been from Instagram stories. Just ask my followers like what they like, what they want, what they feel is missing. That sort of stuff is way more valuable. So I'd say, like, yes, okay, the social media is important. Engage with your, with getting new followers, but really hone in on the ones that are already there, because they're really, really valuable to your brand. And then also just try and rely on the customers that you have got telling other people. So whether that's, you might put a little note in saying, if you like with the product, here's our social media, or, things like that. It's just simple little things that you can do that get people to share and to engage with you on a higher level.
Thank you. And we'll just move on to the last question before I close, and I'll ask everybody this. Maybe we'll start with you, Alice, as you're already speaking. What would be your kind of one snippet of advice for someone that wanted to follow a passion similar to yours?
Oh, I mean, I would say, like, first of all, just go for it. Like, I think the biggest fear for people starting stuff is that there are already people doing it. But if you look at my industry, like the fitness industry has boomed over the last, 5 years, and it continues to grow. And yet there is always space for more people, and there's always room for people who are doing things maybe slightly differently. Don't ever be put off by the fact that an industry can be massively saturated, because you are unique in whatever you offer, and there will be something different that you do that people will really like. So often it's like, I worry that people would look to someone like, myself and think, oh God, I can't do that because she's already doing this. And I have it, even with my app, I've been like, oh, but there are loads of amazing fitness apps out there already. But what I've come to learn over the journey of creating it is there are some gaps in the market that I know I can fill. And so it's about celebrating those, saying, there are things done really well in the industry and there are things that aren't. And how can I position myself so I fill those gaps, or I feel as though I'm working in a space that's different? So don't be afraid to just start. And don't be afraid to enter into something, even if it is massively saturated, because you will find your voice and your place within that space.
Thank you. Yeah, be confident of your niche, I guess. China, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think what Alice said was probably very similar to what I would say as well. But I would also, I mean, if you are nervous, I think maybe from my nervous perspective, it's just get started, chip away at things. Like maybe you're not fully sure of what it is that you want to do. Like, you have this thing that you want to share with everybody and something that's different to what somebody else does. So just chip away at all those little things, go for it, but have a little plan in place, because once you start ticking off those little tasks, you're like, I'm getting somewhere, and you start to feel like you're achieving, even though you're not ready to launch or anything, but you have things in place to really get you going, to give you that momentum that you created yourself.
Thank you. Nikita?
Yeah, I think I've probably said this a number of times throughout this session, but it's really just to enjoy the process. You don't need to have everything planned out. Like, you don't need a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, because things will fall into place as you get started. And believe in your craft. And as I said, it is important to have that support system, but also believe in yourself and be your own cheerleader, and you'll make it through.
Thank you. Luca?
I've seen in a lot of people recently, or people that have asked me similar questions, the actual fear of the failure of putting yourself out there and what if it doesn't work can be crippling. I think you just have to forget about that, taking from, pieces of what everyone else has said. Fail first. Yeah, don't be afraid to fail. And also, like Caroline says, be your own cheerleader. Get rid of this notion of failure. You have to, all those different mindsets. But from my perspective, I think that I have experienced the most growth personally when I've put myself in quite an uncomfortable situation. You do it once, you'll work your way of navigating it, and it can feel horrible. But it will give you that confidence to, for the next 10 situations that come up, and just, start small, do something, and your excitement can grow. For me, it was, I'm just going to have a look at some corporate lets. I'm just going to do some viewings and just have a look at some spaces. And then, you see one, you love it, and you just run away with the idea. And next thing you know, you'll be, opening a business with a team, and there you are. You can't believe what you've achieved.
Amazing. And Caroline, last but not least, what would your last snippets of advice be to someone wanting to pursue a passion similar to yours?
It's amazing what everyone on the panel has already said, because I resonate with all of it. For me, one thing I'll definitely say is expect trouble, right? Trouble is inevitable in anything you're going to start. You're going to experience resistance. So don't let that's not even a factor. That's part of it's what comes with it. So actually focus on the exciting parts of it, follow the curiosity. One thing I learned with myself is you don't need to have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed. You don't need to have every single idea figured out. And actually you'll find that people will have faith in your idea more than you have faith in it sometimes yourself. But actually, I want to encourage people to try and get more faith within yourself first, because you're the person that's creating. You're the source, I guess. So you need to have that faith within yourself that what you're doing works and what you're doing is meaningful. What problems you're trying to solve, what conveniences you're trying to bring into people's lives, what new perspectives are you trying to bring into people's lives. That's what drives me. What problem am I trying to solve? What am I teaching people about who I am and what I do? It's not necessarily just me, but my culture. And from that, it just becomes such an exciting process, and it changes lives. I know it sounds dramatic, but it literally does change life. People who watch you doing what you're doing are inspired to then do something else for themselves. So it's about seeing yourself as somebody that's not just doing a little project, but you're in the middle of effectively changing someone's mindset or someone's thinking. So it's really impactful. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's been amazing, and I want to say such a massive thank you to all of you. I'm going away with goosebumps, and I don't know whether my close and call to action is going to be as inspiring as your last answers to that question. But yeah, a massive thank you to all of you. Thank you for taking up your time, and thank you to everybody that's attended today. I really hope that you found it inspiring and actually taken away some practical hints and tips as well. And just a few closing statements from me. If you would like to be kept up to date with future CMI events, then please sign up to our newsletter. The links are in the chat column and the banner as well. And if you'd like to explore the additional benefits of full membership too, which I would highly recommend, I've been a member for about 7 years as well as a volunteer. You can explore these on the website. And also just to highlight a couple more events that we've got coming up this week. We've got the Fundamentals of Transformation, which is being led by our East Midlands board. I think that's tomorrow. A session providing some guidance on moving into consultancy, and then one I'm really looking forward to on Thursday, which is being led by NHS leaders, which is about supporting disabled colleagues in the workplace. So please drop into those if you've got some spare time, but they will be available on YouTube as well as this one will. So that's it. Sorry, we're 5 minutes over. Thank you to everyone again, and we will see you shortly. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.